Welcome to the panel on the importance of soft skills in today's workplace. Prior to the pandemic, LinkedIn's Global Talent Trends report highlighted that employers increasingly value so-called soft skills. 92% reported that soft skills are equally or more important to hire for than hard skills. And 89% said that when a new hire doesn't work out, it's because they lack critical soft skills. With the pandemic-driven remote work, remote studying, and virtual events that students and grads have experienced over the last 2.5 years, soft skills and new ones required for virtual workplaces are arguably even more critical than ever before. How can employers and career educators arm their students, grads, and new hires with the critical soft skills needed to navigate today's workplace? Joining me today to discuss this important topic is Trevor Buttram, Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Career Educators and Employers, Donna Marshall, the CEO of WorkRight, and Diana Kowarski, President of the Soft Skills Group. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
I want to start off by quoting Trevor from our previous discussions that we've had over the years by saying that for employers, soft skills are actually critical skills. I'd like each of you to give me your thoughts, but Trevor, maybe we can start from you. As a career educator and recruiter, what did you mean by that?
I think sometimes when we coin them as soft skills, exclusively, we tend to almost place them second, right? And in fact, what most often, through this data that you were quoting there, Mary, comes through loud and clear is that these are actually the in-demand skills, the skills that are required to excel and succeed in the workplace. And so the reason that I think we go to soft is rather than secondary, we actually mean nimble and transferable and applicable in a variety of contexts. And so students are honing what they've done on their done list, whether it be through their volunteer activities, through their schooling, through their workplace learning, through their career development. And now starting to think about how do they apply these to their maybe first career, a successful co-op term or an internship in the reality of work. And so I think these skills become the differentiator as to what makes talent top talent.
And Donna, you're an expert in the field of teaching soft skills, so you must agree, but what's your perspective?
Well, I agree that what Trevor just said is really interesting because the Conference Board of Canada just released a significant survey on soft skills, or what they also call emotional and social skills. And they surveyed 1,300 leaders in all industries, including education, nonprofits, as well as for-profits. And they found that the most crucial issue facing leaders today is their concern that there is a huge gap in soft skills of new recruits and people coming right out of school or people who have been in the workplace for a while. Then we had that COVID break, as we all know. And so there was a lack and a change around what's required when we're talking remotely or communicating remotely. So it is in the industry a significant issue for employers.
And Diana, you work with many schools. What have you seen firsthand in students in their career journeys with your work there in colleges and universities?
So the work that we do, Mary, is primarily within those educational areas where we have students who are interested in being as employable as possible, whether it is through a college practical set of courses or a certificate, or if it is indeed through the university route or even advanced degrees. And what we have heard is a combination, a real echo in the work that we've done on an international stage with some pretty large state-of-the-art organizations, including Goldman Sachs, for example, which is looking at professional development as also being a part of one's personal development and how tied those two journeys are, that those soft skills that go by many different names have had a resurrection in terms of the spotlight.
So what are we talking about when we're referring to soft skills? What are those critical skills that young professionals entering the workplace really need? Maybe I can go to each of you and you can sort of define what it is that we're talking about. Trevor?
I think, Mary, when we talk about these skills, we're thinking about, communication, but defining what that communication looks like. So is it the art of persuasion? Is it the art of negotiation? Is it the art of presenting an idea, pitching it so that it is getting the uptake that you're looking for? Is it client engagement, customer service? We're also seeing the abilities to work and collaborate with one another, so to form those working alliances, to manage conflict in the workplace. Those are sort of the ones that come top of mind for me, as well as the potential for leadership. So leadership competency is actually something that we can evidence at any stage of our career. We don't actually need the title to back us up. You can demonstrate, building, consensus, or, being able to make a decision or a tough call, or even just active listening and asking the right questions. These are the kinds of behaviors that I think really help employees to be successful, but also to be able to help them navigate the world of work in ways that, they're able to respond to challenges or some of the sometimes not so great outcomes if, a mistake is made or that kind of thing, being able to take that to heart and be able to learn from those opportunities and present their case in ways that will really resonate with their employer.
And Donna, what do you think that when we talk about these skill sets, what comes to mind in your kind of work that you've done?
Well, I think Trevors identified many of them. What I'd like to differentiate a bit is the internal and the external. So in order to be able to, let's say, show patience or have resilience after a failure, there's an internal piece of work that needs to be done. So there's a great saying where a speaker asked the people in the audience, would you like to know how to lose weight? And everybody's going, yeah, we'd love to know how to lose weight. And he said, it's very simple. You eat less and you exercise more. So we know these soft skills. We know that we're supposed to show patience. We know that we're supposed to manage conflict in a certain way, usually, and or we learn the skills through these courses to do that. What I find a piece that's really essential to demonstrating that is the internal piece. So if I'm a person who's afraid of conflict, I may know exactly what to say, but I'm really terrified of saying it. So in our course, what we do is we marry the internal and the external through self-awareness exercises to be able to understand why I may not have the courage and how I can gain the courage to do some of those things, or to manage my emotions if I tend to be very impulsive and how to pull back on that. So really getting self-awareness as part of the soft skills process.
And Diana, did you have anything to add?
Some great things have already been said, and certainly I agree with both of the other panelists. There's some variation that I would add in that the self-oriented or the intrapersonal piece, including empathy, for example, does indeed need to have a complementary other-oriented or interpersonal piece. And the analogy that often helps everyone to put this into perspective in their own professional development or personal development journey is a pretty timely one. So I know for myself in 2022, I've returned to a great deal of business travel. And just of late, I have heard the instruction on a plane, please put your own air mask on first, if there is a drop in oxygen, of course, before you assist anyone else that you may be traveling with. And it's not that large of a leap, actually, from that instruction to improving one's soft skills, because the instruction is not asking us to put our own air mask on and let everyone else fight for their own existence. It is looking at how it is that we can be of more value to others once we have indeed had even just a moment of reflection of ourselves. So it's a great, quick way of thinking about that intrapersonal and interpersonal divide.
That is so, you've both painted such very interesting pictures of how the internal work is so critical to that development of soft skills, and so that we can be more capable in social environments. But I guess many people have developed soft skills organically in work experience previously, before the pandemic. And it comes naturally almost as an exposure to the workplace over time. And it was always hard for students to get that sort of exposure until they got their first job. So it was hard for them to develop that. But now we have a situation where so many students have had remote work if they had work, and attending virtual events, studying virtually over the past 2.5 years. How has that impacted their capacity to develop soft skills? Trevor?
I think one of the things that we've been observing is that students haven't necessarily had the opportunity to practice in the same way that perhaps previous cohorts have. In fact, the class of 2022 has had 4 different modes of learning and 4 different sort of impacted years throughout their time at the university level, and certainly even at the college level in the 2-year program, same thing. My approach here is also not to always put the onus on the student, to recognize that it's actually, if these are the skills that we want as employers, we need to be investing in their talent equity to be able to develop and hone those skills. So whether it's through training and development, whether it's through the opportunity to participate in simulations or case studies, or things where they could actually contribute to a real world problem, or even in school, like helping students to understand and identify their competencies. In fact, George Brown College recently did some work where they were saying, we have these institutional competencies, we need to benchmark them. Students didn't realize that they were acquiring critical thinking until they were told that that's in fact what was happening in the classroom. So what sometimes we have isn't necessarily a skills gap, it's an articulation problem. We haven't necessarily been able to put these into tangible, expressible, evidence-based ways that we can demonstrate and showcase to employers that, in fact, these are the skills that I have, and here's how they can be applied in your context. So I think it's practice, and I think it's investment, and I think it's the opportunity to really help students to develop a portfolio or a suite of skills that they can use to market themselves to potential employers.
Well, Donna, I'm curious as to whether you think that students are handicapped, even perhaps not just students, even particularly early hires, people who are very early in their career, might be even more handicapped today by their lack of exposure of physical workplaces that we've all experienced over the past few years during the pandemic. Have you sort of recognized that?
Just last week, speaking to someone who represents a very large organization who has identified this as a problem, and they have a very unique solution. They've taken students at the end of their schooling, training, whatever level, post-secondary, and they have brought them in to be mentored by or to shadow someone in the organization. And it was this leader that was telling me about the student that they got. And the student was very confident and enthusiastic, but started criticizing what people were doing in the meeting, and then saying, well, we should do it this way, and you should just be doing this and doing that. Because they were confident and a little arrogant. And so the mentor was be able to then talk to them about that and help them understand the complexities of getting things done in a large organization and the skills that were required from that, and then offering the training. So it was a really good way to match the person becoming immediately aware of some of what they were doing, but also given the opportunity to improve on those.
So true. So Diana, do you think there's an even greater need for soft skills now because of what we've all experienced than perhaps ever before?
It's a question I get asked a lot, actually, Mary, and I think it's a valuable question because there's certainly been a resuscitation in our focus. There's been a mindset shift around how we use our time and the value of time. And there's a certain word that Trevor used. He used the word articulation, that it's a significant choice in how it is that we articulate, especially as students and especially early on in our careers or when we are in transition. It's the articulation of the skills. So those 4 modes that the grads of 2022 have experienced in their learning journey have meant that the soft skills of resilience and of change, and dare I say the word pivot, that had way too much oxygen in the last couple of years, that really the marketplace now is looking at how to be reciprocating in articulating exactly what the values are of those experiences. And there are a lot of values that those 2022 grads have had in those 4 modes and in adjusting and in being as successful as they have been, that they're going to be bringing as a value plus to the workplace. So that's the other side to that same question then, Mary, is how is that these employers can articulate and contextualize those same soft skills?
Well, you're right. I mean, we've all gone through such a journey with the pandemic, and certainly students and grads have, and the resilience that they've shown is quite extraordinary, and their adaptation to new experiences has been quite impressive as well, in my experience. So I wonder, though, if these new adjustments to the remote workplace or the hybrid workplace actually creates a scenario where these new hires or students and grads really need new and different skills than they ever have before. Trevor, what are your thoughts?
I think there is a requirement in, I guess, application of these skills that's different or unique. When you're face to face, I've often spoken about it as feeling the energy of the room. When you're in a Zoom environment, you may need to read the room a little bit, listen to the comments, who's speaking, but who's not speaking, and maybe doing a little bit of asking of questions and identifying and bringing people into the conversation so that you can truly understand what's happening. That's just one example of, how communication would change. But I think there's also a need to recognize that the management of these employees has also changed. Managing in a hybrid workplace is actually a very different skill set. So we need to look at soft skills development for, across sort of our pipeline, but I think particularly at the early career phase, for those who are aspiring leaders, that they're being equipped with the not the legacy management skills or leadership competency, but given the opportunity to grow their skills to be responsive to the adapting and changing world of work. We can't always predict the future, but we can take agency in terms of how we create the reality we want in our workplaces. I think as well, the other thing that I just want to say out loud is that employers' expectations have changed. Entry level isn't actually the right word anymore. It's more sort of foundational entry point into our organizations, but we're looking for an actualized candidate. And so I think making the investment pre-hire is also really important. So whether it's time, energy, money, resources, whether it's sponsoring, these kinds of events through career centers engagement while a student is still in school, we can't ask for something that we're not willing to invest in. And that's the reality. And I think we need to provide folks with the opportunity to be able to hone and develop these skills in whatever way we can.
Well, that's a nice transition for me. Full disclosure for the audience, TalentEgg has partnered with both Diana and her company, the Soft Skills Group, as well as Donna and her company, WorkRight, to develop online e-learning courses for soft skills. These were just launched in the last weeks, and so we're very proud of bringing them to the community of students and grads, and for employers and career educators. Diana, your 5-course series, Backpack to Briefcase, Introduction to Workplace Soft Skills, really focuses on the learner who may be struggling to make the school to work transition. Can you explain a little bit more about the courses?
Absolutely. And although it certainly is appropriate for someone who may be struggling, it's also appropriate for those who are looking for polish skills. So in that way, this series of 5 courses is indeed a great bridge to bring some of what they as individuals have had success as a student to leverage and to identify what those soft skills are that they may have already in place, and then to bring into a work context. And again, to go back to one of the terms Trevor gave to us, an actualized candidate is a candidate that brings skills that they have the self-awareness to articulate and to label, but also to market, to build their brand with either their potential employer or with their new employer. And this is a series that works for those students, as you said, who might be finding their way, but also those other students who are already finding some success, who are looking for that competitive edge.
We have a sneak peek at the first module of Backpack to Briefcase, so let's take a look.
Hello, welcome to Communication Success, written and developed by the Soft Skills Group and produced and brought to you by TalentEgg. Communication Success is made up of 3 sections which include Part 1, Useful Body Language Techniques, Part 2, Conducting Valuable Conversations, and Part 3, Persuasion and Influence Skills. Welcome to Part 1, Useful Body Language Techniques. By the end of this section, you'll be able to understand what body language means, explain how we communicate using body language, successfully utilize body language in your communication with others.
Okay, so Trevor, I know that you know this well because you and I worked collaboratively in these kinds of courses. Do you think this would be a helpful resource for students and grads just hatching their careers and navigating the school to work transition?
Absolutely. I think anytime that you have the opportunity to reflect, to think about, to hone your craft, if you will, is time well spent. But I think for post-secondary institutions, this is a way to give your candidates competitive advantage, as Diana was articulating, and stating. I think the other is for employers to create the reality that you want, and to be able to bring forth the skills that you value or that are critical for the success in your organization, making sure that there's that investment in the development. Anytime that you can demonstrate how these skills also will be beneficial in terms of career pathing, or how they can be applicable not just to get a job, but to keep and be engaged in the world of work, I think demonstrates to a candidate that you care not only about your bottom line, but them as an individual. And I think that that's becoming critical in talent attraction and talent management. This isn't one size fits all HR anymore. This is investment in candidates and in their pipeline and what they're going to experience. And I think that's how employers can start to set themselves apart as well.
Well, Donna, your team at WorkRight developed the 10-course Briefcase to Boardroom Soft Skills to Advance Your Career certificate program. And this advanced curriculum is designed for recent hires and working professionals who want to upskill their soft skills, or for an employer to, develop employee engagement and provide, greater professional development on the job. Let's take a look at the first course in that course.
Hire you? In this course, you're going to discover how to identify and overcome personal roadblocks to building a successful career. Welcome. So let's get started. When it comes to your career success, have you considered your attitude, your communication style, your boundaries, your honesty and integrity, your ability to self-regulate, manage emotions, your courage, your responsiveness, your ability to problem solve, your initiative, your ability to collaborate. These are the primary soft skills categories that impact everyone's performance in the workplace. Please take a moment to carefully consider the following questions. Would you hire you if?
Click on each tab to learn more.
You come late or are underprepared for your hiring interview. This says to the other person, I don't really care about this job. You speak negatively about your previous employer or coworkers. This says, I am hard to get along with. You lie about your previous experience. This says, you can't trust me. You oversell yourself or appear to be an expert at everything. This says, I don't want to learn. You don't make eye contact. This says to a future employer, I am not confident. You undersell yourself. This says, I don't think I'm good enough for this role. You don't answer questions directly. This says, I am hiding something. You focus on what the company can do for you instead of what you can do for the company. This says, I am more interested in benefits than working. You interrupt and don't listen. This says, I don't work well with others.
Donna, I love that the first course starts with the course name, Would You Hire You? It really encourages the user to take a good hard look at themselves and build the self-awareness as part of this journey of creating these soft skills. Can you give an overview of the program?
Well, we started again with self-assessment because self-assessment and self-awareness is crucial to change. If we don't know we're maybe negatively impacting others or not communicating in an effective way, we don't know that we need to change. So the first one has a downloadable workbook that students can use throughout the course as they go through and learn skills so that they can apply it through action plans. And one thing that's really crucial to all of this is that we need to understand essentially what those soft skills are. And Trevor, you talked about that, like how are they articulated? What are those competencies? So we've identified those in the first course, Would You Hire You? And then get people to do self-awareness exercises around when have I been given feedback that I talked too much or something like that, or didn't make eye contact, whatever it was. And then they go through and then they're able to see, okay, these are the areas I really need to focus on. The rest of the courses are focused on filling in the gaps and doing the training around those areas and competencies. So the first one, self-assessment, and then we get into skills, but also it's always married with this idea of, but look at yourself. What have you noticed in the last meeting you were in? How did that come across? And I mean, that's a Zoom meeting, that's a face-to-face meeting. It's any kind of communication, because all soft skills are really just communication and interpersonal skills. They're about relating to other people and how do we do that? Where are we effective? Where can we kind of upskill, as you said? And, you know, where can we make a few changes? And sometimes they're very minor changes. It doesn't have to be a whole overhaul. So often they are little things can make a big difference.
Well, after 2.5 years of working remotely, I can tell you I can probably benefit from those courses myself, from both of the courses. Trevor, what are your thoughts around using courses like this to invest in your talent and for creating employee engagement to support young talent, to show your commitment to the professional development of the team that you brought on board within your organization?
I think it's really important, and I think it's also equips your workforce with a sense of career agency, right? If these are the things that I need to demonstrate to get good at, to have polish, to borrow Diana's language, you know, to be able to advance my career or take it in the direction that I want to go, you start to recognize that your career isn't something that's being done to you. It's actually an opportunity that's being presented and enabled by your employer, and that you have agency in terms of being able to steer that along this squiggly line that is your own individualized path. And these skills allow you to be able to expand that network of roads or pathways available to you. If you hone these skills, you're able to take the steps that you need to, and can also have meaningful dialogue and conversations with your leaders about sort of where you see yourself going and how you want to get there, because you have that self-awareness, you've taken stock of these skills, you've demonstrated that you've honed them and that you're ready to apply them in the next steps in your career.
Well, I'd like to wrap up with some final remarks from each of you, some advice to schools, career educators, and even employers about how to develop their students and employees' soft skills. What would you tell them now that you have this moment to provide that advice? Diana, start with you.
What we tend to bring forward in terms of advice is a three-pronged approach. Be deliberate, be obvious, be clear in the investment and in the benefits of individuals, employers, schools, career educators in developing soft skills, so that we do have a deepened understanding of exactly what the language is. And the debate continues whether they are called soft or critical or interpersonal or power skills or one of the thousands of other names that I have heard over the last umpteenth years. The reality is that the individual and the employer, or the career educator and the student, if they are deliberate and obvious and clear, that no matter which of the soft skills are being exemplified, demonstrated, or honed, that there will be benefits for everyone.
Donna?
I think forums like this, Mary, are really important to educate educators and leaders in business and nonprofits, because oftentimes leaders don't actually understand how crucial they are. They may kind of understand it, but in the end, there's a lot, you're driven and things have to be done and goals have to be met and all of that. And it does tend to get put on the back burner. So I think part of what's necessary is for leadership to be educated in why it's crucial, to attend like a program like this that you're doing, where we can talk about these issues and raise the awareness. And
Trevor, final words to you.
I think it's really important that career educators and employers recognize that they're in this post-secondary to career transition thing together. They need to talk to one another. They need to have forums where they can engage. Certainly Casey provides that as a professional association, and would really, encourage these kinds of dialogues on a pan-Canadian and a national level to continue happening, so that students can get a clearer idea of what are the in-demand skills, what are the soft skills that they need, and how can they be provided with opportunities to continually get them. I think the better that we can articulate what our needs are, so rather than just saying, I need a good communicator, describe what that looks like, so that students can start to model and hone those behaviors. I think that that's critical. And also giving students the opportunity to practice and hone these skills prior to when they become essential, making sure that they're embedded into our curriculums, embedded into the reflection piece around a co-op opportunity, or embedded even in terms of the practical pieces that they can get while joining an employer in their workforce.
Well said by all of you. Thank you to our panelists for their insights and expertise on the critical soft skills young employees need to be successful in the workplace. And for our audience, don't go away. Join us to celebrate achievements in campus recruitment with the announcement of more winners of the 2022 Campus Recruitment Excellence Awards coming up next.